be honest, I sit here today pretty gutted. We have this channel and we set up this podcast because we are massive football fans. But of course, within that, we have our own affinities and we have things that mean a lot to us. The club that really means something to me is Aston Villa. To be honest, I can kind of cut and paste some of the things that I said when Grealish left. These days, there is a bit of a disconnect between fans and the clubs. For the last few years, it didn't feel that way at Villa. The biggest part of that was an incredible manager in Dean Smith, who was one of us in so many ways. He embodied exactly what the club wanted to represent. He was ambitious in what he wanted to do. And it wasn't just a case of taking a job for a payday. This was his dream. Just before Smith took the Villa job, someone interviewing him asked him, why would you want to take the Villa job? It seems that when managers go to Villa, they rarely move on to better things. It's killed a lot more careers than it's developed. His response was, that's because there is no better job than Aston Villa. And that mentality was exactly what Villa needed. We were in a horrible place when Dean Smith took over. We had fallen to mid-table obscurity in the Championship, looking like nothing really, and fearing fading into almost non-existence at times, literally in terms of financially at one point, but also in the mould of kind of your Sunderlands, your Nottingham Forests, even Leeds to an extent for a while, where you fall off the pyramid for a while after a spell of success and a spell of notoriety, and all of a sudden Aston Villa Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the country, undoubtedly, were nothing for a while. And along with that, the process that got us there was so disheartening for Villa fans. And we watched our club fall apart under really misguided stewardship, both at a boardroom level and in the dugout, that when Dean Smith came in, this fresh-minded, attacking philosophy, good gentleman in the game who had been successful at Brentford, but also had this affinity with Villa already, well, that lifted the whole place. Very few successful clubs could turn around and say that their captain and their manager were boyhood Aston Villa fans. And we had that for a while. And even after Grealish left, we maintained that in Smith. And the connection that Smith had with the fans was hugely based on that. He was just a great bloke who cared about the football club and worked like he cared. This isn't a guy who's only got the job because he's a fan. He's an incredibly good manager. He was someone that we were talking about not too long ago was, could he be an England manager one day? He's someone that helped develop this squad, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Along with all of that, the prize really was the fact that we could connect. This is a guy whose father was a steward at the club, and he used to go to Villa Park, and he always aspired to play for them, and he never reached that in his playing career. So this really was his opportunity and something that really meant something to him. And he took it and flew with it, in my opinion. I look back at Smith's reign at Villa, and the things that he brought us as a fan base are just outstanding. We had the 10-game winning run in our Championship season when we got promoted. In his first season with us, he's still learning the squad. And we really thought that season was over. We weren't expecting anything. We thought Smith would get a summer to invest and then go for the Championship the next year. And instead, he just turned it around that quickly. He developed everyone that was there. The coaching staff that were there learned under him. The players, they just became a different group all of a sudden. And as people, they just seemed to improve. And the connection they had with the fans improved. And the atmosphere improved. Everything was better. And we went on that incredible run. And then we had the playoff semi-final. And we had that moment where we knock out West Brom and Smith was there to celebrate it. And then we move on to a final. And seeing Smith lead Villa out at Wembley, knowing what it meant to him and having Grealish behind him too, was just incredible as a fan. It gives you that warmth and that connection to the game that we'd been missing for so long when we had Remy Gard in charge or Alex McLeish or Roberto Di Matteo, people that really we never really cared about as a fan base. We had players there just picking up a paycheck, considering it their retirement project, and not putting anything into it. Now we saw what passion really did for our game and for our club. And that playoff final was fantastic. We deserved the win, and we were back where we should be, ahead of schedule, with Smith there. He was the one that managed to guide us there. And then in that first season, it wasn't always great. It was really hard, in fact. But we had moments. We had some incredible performances and some great goals. And then, of course, that scramble for the last sort of 4 games of the season, where it looked like we were down. We were relegated, and they pulled it out of the bag. Some amazing results. We turned it around and did what no one kind of expected us to do. And then from there, that was the platform that we needed. We invested incredibly well, brought in players that had the right character and right mentality for this squad. And they bought into the dressing room and bought into Smith's philosophy. And we had a fantastic season. We had moments in that season that were incredible. We beat Liverpool 7-2. All of a sudden, we can go and beat the likes of Man United. We can beat Arsenal 3 times on the bounce. That's where we were. Things like the promotion, things like the survival, things like getting to a cup final as well, by the way, really progressed that team spirit. And at the heart of it was a guy who was guiding these players to be better individuals on and off the pitch, coming up with a great system for us to play and organising a brilliant back room. That's what Smith did for the club. Stabilised us again. Gave it back to the fans. I've been a Villa fan for many years now, and there's not been a manager in my lifetime that I've enjoyed watching as much as Dean Smith. For the style of play, for the connection, for what they've achieved. He is my favourite Villa manager that I've ever seen, and I am gutted to see him go. The decision to let him go is a hard one to swallow. I can understand it in some ways. Obviously, we've lost 5 games in the bounce, and the last thing we want to do is be back in a relegation fight. Along with that, across the last 36 games, we've only picked up 40 points, and that is worrying. But I don't know if there's a manager out there that has a better chance of turning that around than Dean Smith. And really, this season, he's had so much to contend with. He obviously lost John Terry and Richard O'Kelly in the summer, 2 of his biggest influences in his backroom staff, really. He lost Grealish, which, how does any club cope with losing a player of that quality? And then he's been trying to bed in new signings who are also coming back from injuries. People like Leon Bailey, we've not seen 100% fit. We've not seen the best of Emi Buendia. Danny Ings is injured at the moment as well. So very rarely has he had a full-strength squad to pick from. This little slide, could Smith have been allowed it as a grace? And had he got enough credit in the bank to kind of try and turn it around afterwards? I think he earned that. I think the fans would have appreciated that. It's very rare that a manager leaves your club and you see the level of sadness behind it that Villa are feeling today. And this isn't a guy who's leaving because he's been offered a better job. He's been sacked. Every Villa fan is gutted for him. He conducted himself in such a way that we can be proud of as a club that it's hard not to fall in love with him as a manager. He gave Villa everything that we have wanted for a really long time. And the dream was to see him and Grealish, sadly, take us into Europe and kick us onto that next stage, which we have the infrastructure for. We could do if we continue investing and continue with the project, because it's been more than just a good run of results and good character. You look at the development of that squad that Dean Smith has overseen, not only in terms of the players that we've brought in and the likes of Ollie Watkins and Matty Cash and the signings that he has made even this summer, but how he's helped players progress. Now, you have to think about where this Villa squad is at now. If you'd said 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that we'd have players that were internationals for Argentina, Brazil, England, it would never have happened. And yet all of a sudden, Smith has coached these players and developed these players enough that Tyrone Mings, Ollie Watkins, Jack Grealish are getting in the England squad. Emi Martinez has gone on from being an Arsenal reserve to being Argentina's undisputed #1 and one of the best goalkeepers in world football. We've got Douglas Luiz in the Brazil squad. Everyone at that club can owe him a debt of gratitude. Their careers are undoubtedly in a better place than they were when he got there. And along with that, think about the academy players that he's starting to bring through. Jacob Ramsey is a regular feature for now for Aston Villa. Cameron Archer this season is doing the same thing. He's invested in youth. And the way that Villa have built an infrastructure around their academy now was missing for years. But Dean Smith is clearly instrumental in helping that build and helping the club progress to where they should be. So to see him go, it's gutting. It really is. It was hard to accept Grealish moving on, but you could understand it a lot more because a new opportunity came at a very high level. and he deserved that. For Smith to be sacked, it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth. And now this isn't me saying I'm outraged at the board, because as I said, the results haven't been good enough and football is ruthless, and every decision they've made thus far has been really productive for the club. But all the same, I know I'm going to miss him. When you saw Smith talk about what Villa meant to him and his family, and when he talked about the experiences he had with his dad as a child, and also in the later life of his dad, and hearing his mom talk about him and seeing that connection, well, that's what every fan experiences with Villa. I talk to my granddad about Aston Villa every single time I see him or talk to him, because that's at the forefront of our bonding almost, because that's what this club can be. So to have someone who gets that. Can you name another Premier League club that has that right now? I can't think of anyone that is as invested as Smith and Grealish were in our club, and then Smith this season. I don't know, I feel like I could go on for hours really talking about how much Smith will be missed. I think the main thing from me and from any Villa fan is just thank you. I really want to just run into Dean Smith and buy him a beer, to be honest. Smith gave us so much. That's something I'll never forget, and something I'm really, really happy I got to witness. Dean Smith can leave with his head held high, with so much credit in the bank, with so much love from Aston Villa fans, that I can't be the only one that just wants to thank him today. I don't know who I want next. I want Dean Smith next. I think he's the best manager available. Some of the names linked, Steven Gerrard, I think, although he's doing a good job at Rangers, I don't think I've seen enough of him to think that he's a good manager and at that level. The other names linked, Roberto Martinez is a better manager than the last time we saw him in the Premier League, definitely. However, you wonder whether club management is where his head is at. I've read Ralph Hasenhüttl, who I think is a really interesting candidate, because I think he has got something about him. I think he has a good philosophy. He's clearly a good footballing mind, but also I think he struggles to get that across to players sometimes. And that's why we've seen Southampton kind of fail to live up to the promise that they've had at times. There's obviously talk of the current Denmark manager who did wicked things in the Euros, but there isn't an obvious appointment to me. And I hope that the club have someone in mind. Who's the obvious candidate to take over Aston Villa right now? Well, I would want someone with a proven record at developing players and helping young players progress. I would want someone who has been at a club who have been successful in their scouting. I want someone who is going to buy into the philosophy of the club and that squad. And there's only one obvious name for that, and we've just sacked him. I just want Smith back. The 3 years that we had under Smith were wonderful. I will back and support whoever comes in, even if it's Steven Gerrard and his affiliations with Liverpool. Whoever it is, I'll continue supporting Aston Villa and be really proud to. And it's a lot easier to do that when we're in such a good place, and we owe so much of that to Dean Smith. So I'm going to miss him. I wish he'd stayed a bit longer, but fair play, mate. And any Villa fans that have anything but positive things to say about Dean Smith, they've got rocks in their brain. So well done, Dean Smith, and thank you for giving us Aston Villa back, really.